All right, so we're going to talk about Chucky. In particular, Chucky Season 3, Episode 8, the finale. And to be honest with you guys, I really liked it. I actually really enjoyed this episode. I thought it worked very well for a finale. I think Season 3 was a huge step up from Season 2. And I actually do like the way that the season ended, particularly because Don Mancini, creator of Chucky, has said recently in multiple interviews that he's working on a potential Chucky movie. And I think that where this season ends, you could easily segue into a movie without it affecting the show. But we'll get into that. I'll talk about specifics. I'll talk about season 3 in general. One of the main reasons I want to talk about this on the channel is because as part of my horror retrospective series, I recently did the Chucky retrospective, but when I made that video, season 3 was only halfway through and the second half wasn't out yet, so there was so much more to talk about. There was so much build up for the first 4 episodes that I never really got a chance to double down and finish all of my thoughts on Chucky season 3, and so as far as I'm concerned, the retrospective is not finished until I make this video. Now, I've had a bit of a love-hate relationship with the show because there's a lot of it that I really do enjoy. Obviously, all of the Chucky stuff. Everything that they do with Chucky. I love the way the animatronics look. I love the kill scenes. I think the gore effects have been amazing. The kills have been incredibly creative. I like the different scenarios of throwing Chucky into the small town or into the religious school or into the White House. I know it's a little bit like of a novelty thing, but after you go so long with a slasher killer, you kind of do go into the novelty of like, let's set him in this location. Now let's put him in this location. And it kind of works for Chucky, I think, almost better than any other slasher character because you can just throw a killer doll into any situation and just watch him wreak havoc, and it's so much fun to do so. I think there's a lot of great actors on the show. I love seeing Fiona Dorff as Nika. She's one of my favorite characters in the entire Chucky franchise. Not really any Andy in season 3. But it's always great to see Andy come back because he's the OG. Now, when it comes to the main cast of the Chucky series, I think that's kind of where I want to say, like, I don't dislike them, but I always thought after season 1 that their story kind of wrapped up. And throughout season 2 and season 3, I feel like the show sometimes struggles to figure out what to do with Jake, Devin, and Lexi. Like, yes, obviously they're there to try to take down Chucky. Obviously Chucky is there to try to kill them. But I feel like they had particular character arcs in season 1 that worked well and wrapped up. And then after that, it just feels like there's not really much to do with them other than just to have them be the people that are there that have history with Chucky that are trying to take him down. And it's not that I dislike the main cast to the point where it's like, I don't think they're bad actors, you know what I mean? I think the actor that plays Jake, especially when he was possessed by Chucky, definitely shows he has a lot of acting range, and sometimes that can be a little bit of a difficulty in TV shows too, because you play the same character for so long. So when an actor finally gets a chance to play something different, especially in a horror show where you can do things like that, where characters get possessed or things change, it's such a breath of fresh air sometimes to see the actor be able to do something different. And I really enjoyed seeing Jake possessed by Chucky and doing the Chucky voice. And every time he'd be like, this is my boyfriend, Devin, we're totally gay. Like, he would just play it up to try to like make fun of the characters, and just like the way that he portrayed it, you know, was really well done. Obviously, he's been around Chucky for 3 seasons now, so he's probably picked up on a lot of his mannerisms and the way to act as Chucky, but I think he did a great job as it. But I guess my main gripes with the TV show, other than when it can get a little bit too wacky like in season 2, but that's just like a style preference. That's not really like a fair criticism, or maybe it is, I don't know. But I think the thing that bothers me is that the characters that I want to see the most of, or the characters that I enjoy the most, like Nika or Andy, or even the little girl Caroline, she does such a good job this season. That one episode, the flashback episode that showed everything that happened before the White House, I thought she was phenomenal. I was like, I want to see more of that. Andy and Kyle, you know, these are all the characters that I really love to see. And whenever they're on screen, I absolutely enjoy them. But they just were not in the TV show enough for me. and Tiffany's character as well. Now, I love Tiffany in Bride of Chucky. Bride of Chucky is one of my favorite Chucky movies. It's actually probably the most rewatchable for me. I prefer the earlier movies, 1 and 2, but Bride of Chucky is just... It's probably the movie I've watched the most. I just think it has tremendous entertainment, rewatchable value to it. But I feel like ever since season 1 into season 2 of the show, Tiffany's character has kind of gone downhill a little bit for me. I feel like they made her a little bit too like just manic, like anxiety filled. Like she went from like this confident, serial killer sort of on the same level as Chucky, just being like manic and fearful and whiny. And I don't know what they did to her character in season 2, but season 3 seemed to kind of bring it back around. Like, I like the stuff they did with her in this episode. I love the jailbreak sequence. I like that they brought back the voodoo doll stuff. That's an idea that was present in the very first movie that they never really talked about or addressed again, that you could make voodoo dolls. So I like that they actually incorporated that into this season and had it be a method for Tiffany to escape the prison. I love how all the guards and police officers were so polite to her, like, right this way, Tiffany, just because they're all possessed or they're all, taken over by like the voodoo curse and everything. So I really liked that. I liked her escape. I never thought she was actually going to die to begin with, obviously. They'll never let those characters die, just like it's a horror series. Like, you'll never let your antagonist truly die. So she manages to escape, and then we come back to the White House and we deal with the end of the last episode where Jake was going to go into the spirit realm, try to find Chucky, try to find the good Chucky, the good aspect of his personality, and have him sacrifice himself. That was the plan anyway. Now, I know that some fans don't like the whole spirit realm thing or like the ghost aspect of season 3, but to be honest, I think it was pretty well done, and I'm surprised that the series never went into that direction a little bit sooner because, again, you establish all this lore in the first movie, that there's voodoo, that there's curses, there's voodoo dolls, and there's a god named Damballa. It's like all that stuff is there. Like, it's all just set up perfectly for you to do something like this whenever you want to. The fact that Chucky's soul can go from doll to doll or possess person to person. So obviously there's a spirit realm. Obviously there's something supernatural going on here. So why not play into that a little bit more? Dracula. And also, as the series gets going, it's good to get more creative and to try different things. And maybe not everything is going to work, but for me, I thought all of this stuff worked pretty well, and I think it fit into the Chucky universe probably better than some people do. I mean, I don't know. It worked for me. And one of the greatest things about it was bringing in Brad Dourif once again to play the actual like human version of Chucky. And it's been so many years, and he gets to play an old man version of Chucky, and it was just so cool to see him play the character in live action with his actual physical performance along with the voice, because he's been the voice of Chucky forever, and he's played Charles Lee Ray, the killer, obviously in the opening of the first movie, but during that movie, he was just like, a random killer. Like, it wasn't as developed as it is now. There wasn't as much history, there wasn't as much lore, there wasn't as much knowledge as we have of the character now. So it was so cool to see him play into that and play this older seasoned version of Chucky in the spirit realm, but as himself, And I wonder how Brad Dourif felt about that, because I know there was that scene in Curse of Chucky where he played in a flashback, but to actually be Chucky in person, actually acting face to face with the other actors, is something that I never really thought we would see. But how they incorporated it into the show, it just made me think, I wonder why we'd never tried this before. Maybe because, we want to see Chucky as the doll, which I think was obviously the intent of the ending of this episode, to get Chucky obviously back into the form that we recognize him the most. Like, we're watching this because it's a killer doll show, right? It's a killer doll movie. It's a killer doll series. So we want to see him as a killer doll. That's why when he started possessing regular humans, it was like, yeah, like, no, it's like, we can't really like go forward with that. Like, maybe do it for a little bit, but we got to get him back in the doll body. But if you're going to just do a sequence within this kind of supernatural spirit realm, and you're going to have all these versions of Chucky, why not bring Brad Dourif in to do it? So that was great. Fiona Dourif played the younger version. We had the teenage version and the child version. And Actually, another benefit of the TV show, season one, I think was the best by far. But another reason why I think that is because we did get all those flashbacks of seeing the origins of Chucky. And I really, really enjoyed all of those scenes. So I liked kind of going back and bringing those actors back in, seeing the clips from it and stuff. It was a really fun aspect of the character to explore that the movies never did. And probably in a movie, you never get the time or the chance to. So I really, really like that they did that in season one. And I enjoyed all that stuff. There was the moment where Jake got to speak to his father in the afterlife as well. And I thought that moment was done very well. Again, I think a lot of the show, also because Don Mancini has so much more control over it than he had over a lot of the movies, is that he's telling a personal story, So when you bring up all the aspects of the character, or the main character being gay, and his father basically kind of viewing him as like a failure and being upset with him about it, being abusive about it. Of course, when you talk about the religious school in season 2, I think all of that is probably influenced from his upbringing, or stories or experiences that he, at least if he didn't experience himself, definitely knew about, with other people that have gone through growing up and questioning their sexuality and things like that. So I think that's fair to put in. I think that if you are telling the story, you have creative control over it, and you're trying to tell a little bit of something a bit more personal along the way, I think that's absolutely fair to put in the show, and I think that it was done well, and I think it was good for Jake's character, so I didn't have a problem with any of that. But I thought it was a really good scene, and even taking all of the kind of sexuality aspect out of it, I think it's important to recognize sometimes that your parents don't have all the answers, and sometimes they are deeply flawed people themselves. And as a kid, you see them as your authority, and you see them as knowledgeable, and they are kind of your vessel to view the world. But as you get older, sometimes you realize that they all have faults and problems and mental issues too, and so we're all just human, right? Now, obviously, when Jake gets possessed by Chucky, that was one of my favorite parts of the show. Like I said, seeing the actor actually be able to do something a little bit different, completely on the other side of the spectrum for what his actual character is, and seeing him kill the paranormal guy in the elevator. I liked all that stuff. I wasn't really too big on the president's son, and I thought Price could have been a much better character when he was introduced, because originally I liked the idea of this very intelligent sort of detective-like character figuring out Chucky without knowing about the paranormal stuff and still being able to deduce it. I thought it might have been a good parallel for Chucky, a good kind of intelligent adversary for him to come across, but it didn't really go down that way. And I don't know. I mean, I think he got what he deserved, but I wasn't really invested in that side of the story either. But the biggest moment, and probably either the love it or hate it moment of the episode, was the ending, where Chucky, now possessing Jake's body, leads them to the house of the man that created the good guy doll, which I thought was pretty cool. Like, I like introducing that concept, and also we get more lore of the universe that we're in. So not only do we have like the supernatural lore and the spirit realm and all that, but we're actually getting more lore of the good guy doll itself, where the guy that created it, by the way, played by John Waters, who of course is a film director in his own right. He was also in Seed of Chucky, playing the paparazzi guy with the camera that gets killed. But now the Chucky series has kind of established that we are going to recast the same actors over and over again for different characters, so not really weird that he looks exactly the same at this point. I like the lore that they incorporated, that he created the good guy doll because he lost his own son. His son was actually murdered, and I thought they were going to go all the way and say that Charles Lee Ray was the guy that murdered his son, but they didn't go quite that far. But his son was murdered, and so this guy created this doll sort of as a representation of his son, or something to love, somebody to be your friend, to be your good guy. This kind of the purity of it, like the original good guy doll, in the purity of it, that he's your best friend and he does all these activities with you and he's always got your back. And that's what was always kind of the scariest thing about Chucky to begin with, is the way that it perverses this thing that's for children. Like, this happy good guy doll that's supposed to be your friend is actually infiltrating your home and murdering you behind the scenes, So it takes something wholesome and positive and for children, and then flips that on its head and becomes this kind of dark, macabre, murderous thing. So I kind of like that it sort of like goes in a full circle. Like the creation of the good guy doll was created in order to cope with the dark horrors of life. And so you create this positive, a beautiful, thing for children because he lost his own child. But then eventually over time, that thing gets perverted once again into a murderous thing. So it comes full circle. So I kind of liked that lore aspect that they added there. But of course, at this point, the creator of the Good Guy doll has also been influenced by Chucky and Damballa, so he's on Chucky's side the whole time. Caroline is here as well, so it was nice to see her once again. And essentially, they bring out the original Good Guy doll, the very, very first one. So this was cool too. So Chucky is going into, like, I guess what you consider the prototype. What would you call it? But that's where Chucky's soul gets put into, because Chucky likes being a doll now. It's just sort of his thing. And like I said, that's what you want to see. You don't want to see Chucky just possessing people. Like, you want to see the Chucky doll. And I think where this episode and season ends, I think was kind of, I don't want to say perfect, because there's obviously a lot of unresolved things. But if you consider the idea that either the show could continue or there's going to be a movie, it actually leaves in a pretty good spot, because Chucky is put back into the doll body. Tiffany shows up. She's put back into her doll body. So now we finally have that Bride of Chucky vibe, that Bonnie and Clyde aspect, which is my favorite aspect of Bride of Chucky. I like seeing them together. Obviously, they're going to fight and break up and try to kill each other again. That's what they do. They get together. They're hyper, sexual together and romantic together, and then they just want to kill each other. It goes back and forth. That's their whole thing. That's their whole dynamic. It always has been. Even in Bride of Chucky itself, just that movie, that's what it was. They love each other. They want to kill each other. They love each other. They want to kill each other. That's what it is. So they're back together, and then they throw Jake, Devin, and Lexi's bodies into these marionette dolls, which looked horrible, by the way, but I don't really care. And again, maybe, is this my fault? Is this my fault because, am I an asshole for just not loving these main characters? Again, I think they're fine. I don't hate them, but if they would have all died at the end of this episode, I'd be fine. I'd be like, whatever, So, maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just a me problem. Like I said, I think their best story arc was season 1. After that, I don't know, man. I'm just not really invested in any of them, so I didn't really care that they got turned into dolls. I did care that Nika showed up at the end, which I felt was kind of unnecessary because they didn't really do anything with that. I guess it's just to set up whatever could potentially happen with this creator guy. Because she goes into the house, sees the Devin Lexi dolls, and then the creator puts a gun on her. And that's kind of where they end it. We don't really hear the gunshot or anything, or, maybe he's going to turn her into a doll too. I don't know. Or maybe she's going to be the one to rescue them. She's going to get turned into a doll and, be able to kill the creator and take them out. And I don't know what's going to happen with that. But this is where the episode ends. And I think it was done this way deliberately, because now you have a chance to continue the show, because you have Jake, Devin, and Lexi there. They're still alive. They're just in weird, horrific CGI doll bodies. I don't know what that was, but they're there. So you could do something with that. Or they're there so they could remain captive and you can tell other stories and then eventually get back to them if you get back to the TV show. So it's kind of set up in a way where if he wants to make another movie, you have the perfect scenario. So you have Chucky and Tiffany in their doll bodies. You do have Caroline there, so you'd have to either write her out or carry her over into the movie also. But she's with them. But it's wide open. And I kind of like that. I kind of like that aspect of it, because I really want Chucky to go back to the movies. Like I said, the TV show, I think, has a lot of highlights. I think it has a lot of good stuff to it. I think it expands the lore pretty well. But if you were to ask me, would you rather have the Chucky movies or the Chucky TV show, and I could only pick one, I'd obviously go with the movies. I want to see him back on the big screen. Obviously, it's been 20 years since the real Chucky has been in a movie, but I want to see it. I want to see a movie. So I don't know what that says about me, that Jake, Devin, and Lexi, they can stay dolls for all I care. I mean, if they made another season, obviously, I'd want to see what happens, but I'd like to see where else it could go. If you give it a higher budget, put Chucky in space. I don't know what they're going to do. I kind of want to see a movie, but I don't know. Mancini never really confirmed which direction it's going to go. And obviously, it's all going to depend on budget. It's all going to depend on what studios allow them to do. As far as me making this video, I do not believe a season 4 has been greenlit. So this could be the end of the show. And there's there's nothing saying that if they made a movie that they couldn't incorporate Jake, Devin, and Lexi. Like, that could be a thing. I just think it might be nice to take a break from the show and move into a different direction and see what else you could do with Chucky, where else you could throw him that would be fun. As far as the other characters, like Nika, I am very invested in, so I would like to see more of her. There was no Andy or Kyle this season except for Chucky's dream sequence, and I know the actor that plays Andy doesn't really want to do acting. He just kind of does. I think he just does Chucky because he's just part of the family, so he comes in and out. But I'd like to see something with that as well in the future. But yeah, other than that, guys, I gotta say I like season 3 for the most part. I really did. Season 1 is still the best. Then I'd put season 3, and then somewhere down here I'd put season 2. But I thought it was fun. I liked the novelty of Chucky in the White House. I did like the afterlife supernatural stuff. I thought that worked very well for me. I know some people didn't like it, but I thought it was good. I love seeing Brad Dourif as Chucky in live action, and I like where they ended it. Now, if this was the ending of the whole franchise forever, that would be a bit disappointing. But if it's just a momentary ending in between what they decide to do with a TV show or movie, I think it works fine. So let me know what you guys thought of the season 3 finale of Chucky down below if you've seen it. And with that, I guess I can now consider my Chucky retrospective to be fully complete. Those are my thoughts on season 3. And I guess if any new Chucky material comes out, I'll just be start reviewing from scratch, man. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Give this video a like and a comment if you enjoyed it. Let me know what you thought about the season finale down below, or just season 3 in general, or just the TV show in general. Let me know all your thoughts. Thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate it. I'll talk to you next time.